Suicide in the military is a huge problem that the Pentagon has made a top priority to combat. Just recently, representatives from all branches of the military attended a conference in Boston to come up with ways to address the problem. Senior national correspondent John Roberts looks at the dramatic steps the military is now taking to stop servicemen and women from ending their own lives.
Says, Grandpa, just wanted to give you my thanks for being a great influence in my life.
The pain of suicide still haunts former Marine Sergeant Dana O'Brien. His grandson, Corporal Daniel O'Brien, hanged himself in July of 2009.
I don't think I'll ever be the same again. There's a knot right here in my gut, and it's probably going to stay there.
Corporal O'Brien was a veteran of 2 tours of duty in Iraq and had a beautiful baby girl, Alexis. But his wife, also a Marine, had recently left him. And after a fight on base, he was certain his career was over. His grandparents never thought he would take his life.
I knew he was blue, knew he was upset. Even said to him in text messages that if he continued to feel this way, he needed to speak up.
O'Brien was one of 52 Marines who died by suicide in 2009, a record high. In response to the exploding numbers, the Corps launched an aggressive program to combat the problem. Lieutenant Commander Andrew Martin is the psychologist in charge.
Leadership is letting folks know that it's not a sign of weakness if you ask for help.
The Marine Corps has also caught on to the idea that with the extra stress of repeated deployments in war zones, it is now as important to be psychologically fit as it is physically fit. So at boot camps, like here at the famous Paris Island, they have added a new dimension to basic training.
In addition to the Marine staples of hand-to-hand combat and weapons training, there are now courses on what has become a problem of staggering proportions.
How many of you in here know of someone who has committed suicide?
Remarkably, more than half the recruits in this class have been touched by suicide. Everyone from enlisted personnel to command staff gets training on prevention.
We talk about warning signs and risk factors, what to look for, especially for changes in behavior.
The program may be having an effect. In 2010, Marine suicides dropped 30% from the previous year to 37%. The active duty Army, which also has a comprehensive program, saw a decline, as did the Navy. But the Air Force hit a 17-year high. And in the National Guard and Reserves, the numbers nearly doubled.
I see some of the kids that are 17, 18, 19 years old who default fairly easily to the idea that if you got a problem, the best alternative is to, take your life.
Major General Ray Carpenter is baffled by the increase, particularly since more than half of suicides were among soldiers who had never been deployed.
We think that we're seeing a societal problem, and frankly that the Army is the canary in the mine shaft here.
Economics aren't the driving force. Most suicides were among citizen soldiers who had jobs. But there was one common thread, a broken heart, like Marine Corporal Daniel O'Brien.
It's hard. We were awful tight. They say you don't ever get through it. You just have to work your way through it. That's basically what we're all trying to do.
The effect of suicide on those left behind is devastating. The military is trying to help frontline troops cope with stress with rigorous pre-deployment training that mimics conditions in Iraq and Afghanistan. Many units also take a psychologist with them to the front lines to counsel troops.
The idea is that if I'm the psychologist back in the hospital, nobody is really going to want to come see me. But if I've deployed with you, you're going to be more comfortable with me.
It's an option Corporal Daniel O'Brien never had. He never spoke up, and none of his peers recognized the warning signs. His grandparents hoped that by speaking out, they might help save another family from the penetrating grief that still haunts them.
If only every young man had such a great role model in their life, this world would bound to be a better place. Looking forward to seeing you and Grandma again.
It's just heart-wrenching to see the impact that suicide has had on the O'Briens and so many other military families in this country. At the moment, the suicide rate among the military is higher than that among civilians. But if General Carpenter is right, and the National Guard is an indicator of what lies ahead across society, Chris, we may all need to put the same focus on suicide prevention that the military has tragically found so necessary.
John, thank you for that report.